When planning the road to success, there are a few steps to keep in mind. Identifying and solving the cause, facing and embracing change, goal setting, and being accountable. We'll talk about this today on Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. New and healthier habits lead to prosperity in all areas of your life and business. Now, here's your host, Chris Salem.
Well, welcome. Hope everyone's having a great week. Again, it's a beautiful day here in the New York City area. Spring is in the air. And when I think of prosperity, I always feel that, spring is always the telltale sign that prosperity is around the corner. So again, if you're new to Sustainable Success, again, we're here obviously on the Voice America Influencers channel, but you could also find us on Facebook at Sustainable Success 2017. That's Sustainable Success 2017. Again, check us out there. Come like us. You'll find many of our on-demand episodes with our many great guests that we've had in the past. A wealth of information that could help you not only in your business, but also raise your personal success as well in terms of your wellness, relationships, wealth, and all of the above. Again, check us out at Sustainable Success 2017. Today, our sponsors are Empowered Fathers in Action, or EFA movement. They are a 501c3 organization dedicated to strengthening the father-son bonding process, but even go beyond that to help create interdependent communities and corporate businesses by focusing on creating interdependent families. So this is getting to the root cause of limited beliefs that could get in the way of levels of self-confidence, not only in adults, but also what children observe and then take as their own as they become adults, so that we can break this dysfunction and cycle of codependency through the EFA movement process. So check them out at efamovement.org. That's efamovement.org. Also, if you're going to be in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area on May 17th through the 18th, come by and check out the Entrepreneurials Living the Dream. This event will be taking place over a 2-day period. They'll have great speakers providing a wealth of content that will be helping not only take your business as an entrepreneur to another level, but also how you can strike balance with your personal life. Again, check it out, Entrepreneurials Living the Dream. You can check them out on Facebook or on Eventbrite. Again, May 17th, 18th in Sunrise, Florida, which is between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Today, we're going to be talking about creating our new story. So again, we all know that old models are not sustainable, and that creating anything new, like manufacturing products at the expense of everything else, has placed us as humans and other species in precarious positions. We're going to be hearing from Judith Dreyer, and Judith is an author, consultant, and a speaker. She also holds an MS and BSN as well. She's a master gardener and teacher with over 20 years experience developing workshops, classes, and speaking and writing about holistic health, edible and medicinal plants, dreams, and more. She has a degree in nursing and nutrition science and has taught holistic health studies and nutrition science at both university and college level. Judith has traveled a wheel of diverse learning and experiences. Without further ado, we welcome Judith Dreyer to the show. Judith, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great, Chris, and you're right. It's a beautiful day, and thank you again for having me. This is a delight and an honor to be here with you.
Absolutely, Judith. I mean, we had the pleasure of seeing each other last week, and that we both live in this beautiful state of Connecticut, and now that we're coming out of winter into spring, it looks like better things are going to be coming in terms of the weather for us, and I'm sure for you being a gardener, I mean, this is your time of the season and so forth. So getting to the topic today, creating our new story. I mean, change is inevitable, and it's so important that when we look at creating our new story, can you talk about what that means to us as humans and then at the individual level?
Sure. I feel that the old military model that we've been living under, which is command, control, and uses up resources without regard to anything else on the planet, has put us in a very precarious position. And Jean Houston, one of my favorite authors and speakers, says we cannot reverse the overuse of our environment without facing the gross underuse of our interior environment. So what you write about, what you speak about, and what I write about and speak about is that we're interconnected. The outer and the inner is connected. So we have to look at how are we going into the inner journey so that we can really make some constructive, sustainable changes in the outside world. Now, Bill Plotkin, he's the author of Soulcraft. He's also the founder of the Animas Valley Institute, and he feels that we're functioning at the level of a 15-year-old teenage boy. What that means is we have an immature male perspective running our world in many ways. So the questions that I ask are, how can we grow up into a better level of maturity where we unite the masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves and we renew a healthier partnership with nature? And it's timely. We need to get with the program, so to speak. So from my experience as a presenter, writer, and a speaker, dreamer, I feel we are looking for ways to write a new story. And we want one, as you know, that is both regenerative and sustainable. So creating our new story is a program that I offer. It's a one-day program that walks the wheel of the four directions. In other words, I use the qualities of the four directions as a starting place to create the structure and form of disseminating information that hopefully ends up with practical action that's sustainable. So why do I use the four directions? Well, first of all, it's something that I've been living with for a lot of years. I have Native American ancestry. When I started to learn about the medicine wheel in a more formal way, my heart started to sing. I just felt like this is it. This is something that connects us with nature. And what I love about the wheel is that it's a circle. And we know that the circle is the most common symbol on the planet, and that gives us a starting point. In Sanskrit, the word for circle is mandala. Many people are very familiar with the mandala today, and we know that on a deeper level, the mandala represents the universe. But even more than that, once we start placing whatever on that circle, it becomes alive. It's actually a living, breathing entity, and that's a deeper teaching in the Sanskrit world of Hindu where this particular concept comes from. And I find that when I put the four directions on there, what do we create? We create a compass. Everybody knows what a compass is. So the four directions isn't necessarily a location, though that can be a factor, but it's more than that. There's a depth to the four directions, and many cultures offer their particular perspective on what that means. So if we use the mandala, if we put the four directions on there, then this tool gives us an opportunity to see what's subconscious and make it conscious. That's something that Carl Jung discovered in his work, and I really feel that that's true.
Yeah, talk a little bit more. So this goes back, this medicine, this goes back, right to the Native American Indians, like you're talking about, right?
Yes, but it's not just Native American culture. If you look at traditional Chinese medicine or the Taoist Chinese medical model, if you look at Ayurveda, if you look at Tibetan medicine, if you look at Japanese medicine, everything, and African, Australian, everything, every one of those systems is connected to nature. And they're connected to the elements or the four directions. They put a slightly different spin on it, but it's still it's the basis of understanding how to be the best human we can be on this planet, and that covers us on a mind, body, and a spirit level.
Wow, it's so powerful.
That makes sense?
Powerful. Absolutely. So, talk about this. If we're looking at this, we look at this at a macro level from, just humans in general. What would this mean to the individual level if we're looking at this? If we are like somebody that, that wants to really understand the importance of this and how we can individually, understand it and then be an example for others, so to speak?
Well, if you want to use the wheel, which I use, I create a mandala. The influencers are very big on accountability and goal setting. And for me, what I do with that is I take the 4 directions and I create a mandala for the beginning of every year. And I've been doing this for many years. And it's amazing the insights that come from that, because some of it truly is not conscious. It's just trusting my intuition to put this word, this picture, this sense to whatever meditation I'm working on to create this mandala. And then it becomes a book for me for the year. I open January up, and what did I write about January? What insights are there? And what came in on January? What do I have to look out for? So that's a very practical way of using the 4 directions on a mandala. And what I like about it, and what you talk about, is going on that inner journey personally. You know, we have to face ourselves. The best human being we can be is when we are not afraid to face ourselves and to look at ourselves honestly with authenticity. And these tools give us an opportunity to do that.
So true. So when you look at like these 4 directions, what would, let's say, for instance, like, what would each direction, mean to you? Like, say you or say anybody, if we look at this, like, there's east, west, south, north, that type of thing.
Right. So we're on the East Coast. My elders always started everything in the East. So we're going to begin with the East. So I'm going to ask you, Chris, a question. What
Sure.
does the East mean to you?
Well, the East means to me that it's, they're the roots of America. And it's just old-fashioned values. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind. If I'm not overthinking or overanalyzing anything, it's just this is the root of America, where the foundation is, where it started. And I just feel, because everything's older here for the most part, it's just, this is where, values, values that, that are related to the American, to Americans really stem from.
Okay. Well, that's a great place to begin. And what I like to do is I like to look at it from some qualities that are involve color and season and life cycle, and there's a reason for that. So for me, the East is about dawn. It's about the breaking of a new day. It's about infancy and childhood, because that's the beginning of us on the planet. It's about spring. That's the place where seeds burst through the ground. It's about the freshness of morning. There's a different quality to morning than there is to evening. There's a color here. In many traditions, the color is typically yellow. And we could go on and on from there. And then we can start adding other qualities. So if we think of children, what do you think of? I think of innocence. I think of excitement. I think of in the moment with children. So if I were to start a project, and I do this with all of my workshop development, I look at what is the beginning structure and form that I need to work from in order to create the program, the project, perhaps a leadership idea. I look at the beginning, as you said, the beginning of America here. I think that's a very good insight to the East. So again, we're going to look at some values, we're going to look at some qualities, and we're also going to look at the shadow side, because everything has light and shadow. So I think of Peter Pan here. It's the person who doesn't really want to grow up. They really want to stay in that area of adolescence, emotionally, mentally. They just don't really step away from the teenage years emotionally. And as I said in the beginning, that is a problem, with our model that we're operating under today. So does that make sense to you, looking at the East that way?
Yeah. Now what about the other directions? Would that mean, that would mean different things then? Like if it were south, north, west. I mean, because when you think about east, if we combine north and east, that would definitely be New England, right?
Yeah, I'm not really looking at the directions right now as a location.
Gotcha.
Okay? What I'm looking at it is a compass that governs certain principles here on this planet. So in the east, we have the air element typically. We have, like I said, the color. We have the beginning of the day. If we look at those literally and then take them a step further and describe the qualities of those, then we start to create a framework that's going to be filled in as we go around the wheel. So let's go to the south. The south would be summertime. It would be adolescence and young adulthood. And what happens in summer and in adolescence? It's intense. It's showing off time. There's a blossoming of ideas and ideals. It's a time of storms. But it's also a time of incredible growth and beauty. So those are qualities that embody the South for me. And you can take it as, so you have the season, you've got the life cycle, the color is usually red, the element is usually fire, things are bursting out in all shapes and forms, and we love it. And we're also more outgoing in the summertime. We're more active in the summertime. So there's a physical quality to the summer as well. And then if we look at the shadow side, think about teenagers. We think we know it all. We are arrogant. We have the answer to everything, and we don't want to listen to anybody. So the shadow side kind of holds some of that energy here, too. So, again, if we infill the qualities of the direction in this way, when it's time for us to sit in the circle and to figure something out, we have a lot of maps to go to. We have a lot of guidance to go to, and that's what I love about doing this.
Wow, this is fabulous stuff. I mean, this is, and we have less than about a minute and a half to the break, Judith. When you got into this, what did you feel like this would be, how this could really shift one's consciousness, so to speak, or even us as humans, and how this can really impact? If we could summarize that, and we could always continue after the break.
Yes. So I feel that it gives us a tool on a personal level to deepen our inner journey. If I look at all the qualities of the four directions and I have an issue or a problem I'm facing, I can literally sit in a circle around my kitchen table, put the east, south, west, and north, and mark them out, and I can sit in each one. I can meditate, and I can see what my guidance is, and I can get a better sense, maybe a deeper sense, of what it is that I'm seeking.
Gotcha. This is powerful stuff. Again, we're listening to Judith Dreyer. We're talking about creating our new story. And if you're just joining us, this is some really, really interesting perspective on how we can look at life and some of the things that we could do to make changes, not only as humans, but also for the planet that we live on, the areas that we live, and that really how this could really impact us in so many profound ways. Again, creating our new story. We're going to be going to break, but when we come back, Judith is going to be sharing some more information on how to create our new story, and we'll be right back after the break.
What is balance? It's being true to your purpose and not being distracted by shiny objects, surrounding yourself with family and loved ones, nurturing your spirituality, maintaining healthy balance of emotional and physical wellness, and being present in the moment. Chris Salem creates awareness about unblocking mindset barriers for sales professionals, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and all types of people to have sustainable success at the next level. The solution evolves out of the problem or challenge. The issue is that many people and businesses manage the effect but do not address the root cause. You now have an opportunity to live your life and operate your business in the solution rather than the effect of your challenges. Schedule a time to chat about your goals and the person you desire to be by going to ChristopherSalem.com. We have group consulting calls, one-on-one, and other programs to assist you. It will be the best thing you do for yourself to see how sustainable success is possible for you in your life and business. Join us at the next level. Visit ChristopherSalem.com. What is balance? It's being true to your purpose and not being distracted by shiny objects. Surrounding yourself with family and loved ones. Nurturing your spirituality. Maintaining a healthy balance of emotional and physical wellness. And being present in the moment. Chris Salem creates awareness about eliminating limited beliefs or unblocking mindset barriers for entrepreneurs, sales professionals, business leaders, and professional athletes to have sustainable success at the next level. The solution evolves out of resolving the root cause to the problem. The issue is that many people and businesses manage the problem but do not address the root cause to it. You now have the opportunity to live your life and operate your business in the solution rather than the effect of your challenges. Schedule a time to chat about your goals and the person you desire to be by going to ChristopherSalem.com. We have group consultation calls, one-on-one, and other programs to assist you. It will be the best thing you do for yourself to see how sustainable success is possible for you in your life and business. Join us at the next level. Visit ChristopherSalem.com.
This is the Voice America Influencers Channel. Be inspired.
You are listening to Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. Call into our program today at 1-866-472-5795. Again, that's 1-866-472-5795. Or send an email to Chris at ChristopherSalem.com. Now, back to Sustainable Success.
Well, welcome back. We're here with Judith Dreyer again. She's an author and speaker, and we're talking about creating our new story. And again, this is a really interesting perspective on how we can look at life, not only as humans, but also individually. And we were talking about the circle of life and how it contains 4 directions, that being north, south, east, west. And we didn't get to all the directions, Judith, but we're going to continue here again. So I think we want to talk a little bit about the west and the north, if where we left off.
Yes, I think so, because that completes the circle, and we get the content out for everyone to understand the rhythm of the circle. So let's go to the West. The West is probably one of my favorites because it's the place of the dream time. And I've been an avid dreamer since a young girl. I've got another manuscript written about dreams, and I could talk to you for 2 days, Chris, about dreams. So the West is about the mature adult, and it's about sunset. So think about, what do we do at sunset? We come home from work, we put our feet up. Even nature quiets down at the sunset. The birds get a little quieter, the wind dies down a little bit. So we have the water here, and we have the color blue and black here, which represents the water. So we want to look again at the qualities of the mature adult. What regrets do we have? You can't get to 40, 50, 60 years old without having some regrets. That's just part of life, and we need to maybe look at what were our goals for the first 20, 30 years of our adult life, and where are we at now? And do we need to tweak the program? Do we need to make serious changes? A lot of folks get divorced, relationships break apart, children leave the nest, and all of those qualities shape the West. And then, of course, we have the dreams. And I'm not talking about just the nighttime dreams. I'm talking about the dream time, which is more inclusive. And, Chris, you are a big voice for intuition, and intuition is part of our operating system. So by listening to our intuition, our gut feelings, what do we get in meditation? What is the synchronicity that just happened? As well as our nighttime dreams, we really refine our intuitive skills. And that's the joy of being here, is to do that. So again, what's the shadow side of the West? Well, it's the adult who's dragged down by life and doesn't really make any changes, you know? So we kind of get stuck there. I mean, you and I have both seen that in our families and work situations. So there is a shadow to the west. And then, last but not least, we'll go to the north. And the north, as you might imagine by now, is midnight, it's winter, it's the elders, it's our elder years, but it's also about prayer and gratitude. And the shadow side of the elder is just because you're old, it doesn't mean you're the elder. And I've seen that in my geriatric nursing career. You know, there are people who are stuck at the 14, 15-year-old emotional level, and they're not what I would call, or they haven't stepped into the role of being an elder. And for me, a true elder is one who's willing to share their gifts and talents, and especially their wisdom, because they've seen it. You know, we need them to say, oh, honey, don't worry about this. It's going to pass. You know, we all need somebody in our life to remind us of those things. And I think the true elder does that. And they share what they've learned with others because they want to pass it on. You know, that's the gift of wisdom, is to keep passing it on.
It's so true. I mean, like when you were talking about, you know, intuition and, you know, change, you know, change is inevitable. Whether if we want to change or not, change is still going to happen. And when we have the ability to really tap into our intuition and really trust that process, trust from within, we're able to really adapt to these changes. And I love these 4 directions. You know, it's just a very interesting perspective on how you can use them to really make, you know, create our new stories, you know, kind of make those changes and so forth. So, I mean, if we were looking at this, Judith, if somebody says, hey, that's listening today, and I'm like, wow, this is really, really making an impact and where I am and where I could see myself. You mentioned your workshops, but, you know, if somebody were to attend your workshop, or if, say, somebody is not, say they're far away, what would be the first step they could do to start looking at this process?
Well, that's a twofold question. First of all, personally, you can get out a piece of paper, put a circle on it, and mark the 4 directions. Everybody can do that. And then put down what you think the qualities of each one of those directions are for yourself. Then, if you have an issue, you can sit with it and sit around your wheel and see what insights and inspiration comes. And I feel this can be adapted to just about anything. Like I said, I create and use this model to create my teaching modules from whenever I do a workshop. So Creating Our New Story has 4 modules, east, south, west, and north. I put information that I feel is appropriate to each quality and place, and then I tie it in at the end. And of course, the center of the circle is our intuition. So we always run everything through our intuition. And Chris, one point I'd like to make is when you're doing this kind of work, it's really fun to sit in the east with a question, or sit in the west and look at the opposite part of the wheel. So the mature adult can look at what the child has brought to something, and vice versa. The same thing with the south and the north. And we can get a different level of wisdom just by doing that one little addition to sitting around the wheel. And I find that fascinating for myself, and that's what I try to offer, again, in the workshops.
Wow, that's fabulous. And, during this process, Judith, would you say that this is, obviously going to be a different time frame for each person? Or if people are doing this in groups, would it be different? In terms of, would they be on the same page?
Yeah. Well, usually what I do is in my groups, I start with the East. Everybody's on the same page. However, if I'm doing a dream class, then I take somebody's dream from their perspective, because we do get a sense if we're over here on the left in the west or over here on the right in the east. And we start to look at the picture that's emerging from that dream. And then we can see what's obvious and maybe find out something that's not so obvious. And that's what I love about the work.
Wow. So now let's take a look at this a little bit. If we were to say that, life isn't always perfect, right? And, life is a process. Change is part of that. And sometimes when we're going through change, there could be some uncomfortable times, and this is all what I talk about with what I do is part of the process to anything worthwhile that you're aiming to get to. So when we look at these, I think you call them interruptions. So if we, when people, face these interruptions, sometimes they tend to say, well, I'm going to blame life. I'm going to blame this process for any of the shortcomings. This is my fate, so forth. Talk about what's the difference between fate and destiny when we're talking about this topic today.
Well, I love Robert Ohato's work and Carolyn Mace's work about fate into destiny. Robert gives us a very clear understanding about fate and destiny. So he says that fate is the contract we're born with. So another way of saying that is it's the gifts and talents that we're born with. But destiny is those talents give us an opportunity to fulfill our destiny, and our destiny is how we face the challenges. So let me give you an example. Let's just say you have artistic talent, right? How are you going to play that in the world? Are you going to let your shadow rule you? I'm not good enough. I never get picked. How come so-and-so has this gallery showing and I can't seem to get my foot in the door? Are we going to give voice to that and stay stuck there, which tells me that's more of a fated life? Or are we going to say, how can I make it happen? What do I have to do to get in the door? And I think your work and the influencers' work is just that. You break things down into smaller pieces in order to accomplish a task. However, we have to bust through the fear. We have to bust through our insecurity. We have to grow our self-esteem. And when we do those things, we start hearing the whispers of our soul differently. And that's when we live a destined life.
That's true. I mean, what you just talked about, the difference between fate and destiny, is that, yes, there are going to be certain things that we have to learn how to let go that we can't control. Because what we try to control that we can't is only going to just put more pressure and more frustration onto us. We could either decide to own it or not, and so forth. So that being said, but by learning that we can take action and take it in a sequence of events, which I always like to call the process, and to be focused on that at one day at a time, that we have the ability to do our part and allow the world or the universe, whatever you want to call it, to do its part. So would that be safe to say how we can distinguish between a fated life and a destined one?
Yes, but also there's a joy to it, and that's a factor that we need to understand.
Yeah,
and
let's talk.
It's not about. I feel I'm living my destined life. I do a lot of dreams, a lot of inner work. I've received a lot of guidance. When I act on that particular guidance, go here instead of there, my life seems to be a flow. There's synchronicities start to happen, which is magical. You and I both know that. When we are in the right place, it's like the universe showers us with gifts, and we just have to be open enough to pay attention and to receive them. And that, to me, is the quality of a destined life. Will it always be easy? No, but you say it so well in your book, Master Your Inner Critic, that if you follow your passion and feel that your heart involved, then we can handle the obstacles. And I think that's a really good reminder, Chris.
No, I love how you said that. It kind of correlates to something I always like to share with people. That we have to learn. As we go through this process, that we have to learn how to give without expectation, but simultaneously receive without resistance. And you talk about a destined life, about receiving. That we have to be open to receiving, just as we give. And not necessarily we always going to receive for something that we felt that we gave. We could be receiving something that could be coming out of left field, but yet plays as part of the process that really points us or continues us on the right journey to where we're going. But a lot of times people may not see that. So in terms of like the clarity aspect, what would you recommend somebody that if they're on this path and they're looking at the difference between a fate and destiny, how they could obviously be leaning more towards a destined lifestyle to understand their part? Some quick tips that you could provide there.
Well, let me start this way. There's research that shows that we have about 80,000 thoughts a day, and about 80% of those are negative. So for me, it's managing the negativity. It's that inner critic inside, that little voice that says, how come you're doing this? How come you're not doing that? Blah, 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 blah. And it's that little poking, that negative poking that we do to ourselves all the time. And we all have this. It's part of our human walk here on our life. And so we have guidance such as maybe Buddhist practices, for example, that get us to be in the stillness, to quiet that monkey mind all the time. But I know for me that when I acknowledge that I am doing this, that I'm having these kinds of thoughts, and I add prayer to that, I'm not afraid to talk about prayer, in this day and age. I think it's healthy. Or whatever people want to call it, but there's some kind of connection that there's something more than me going on here that can help. And when I do that, I'm amazed at how things soften, and I find that those thoughts seem to melt away without me doing anything more consciously about it. Does it take practice? Yes. Is it always easy? No, because who wants to face the fact that maybe there's a little bit of a thief in us, or maybe there's a little bit of a gossip in us? Who wants to face those qualities? But I know, and you know, that when we are honest and we are authentic about that life changes around us. And I think that's probably the best advice I can give.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, transparency and being authentic is so important. I mean, sometimes, like I said, as we go through this process, there's going to be the ups and downs, but it's all necessary for the growth and where we're heading, that we see the bigger picture, but we trust the process that as we're in whatever we're in at that moment, is as long as we're doing what we're supposed to do and letting go of the rest, that in time, things will, come to fruition to where we desire to be. It may not always be 100%, but it definitely is right within the parameters of where you'd like to be. And I loved how you distinguished that between fate and destiny. We got about less than a minute, Judith, to the break, but if you wanted to just summarize again, what we talked about here in the second segment, just for the people that have been listening or just been joining in late, just again, the summarize, the difference between fate and destiny.
Yes, again, fate is what we bring to the table. It's who we are in our essence. It's what we're born with. How we play that in the world creates our destiny. And part of a destined path is what are we going to give to the world. And one of the ways that we recognize doing that is by going on the inner journey, is not being afraid to embrace the change, to accept interruptions, and to face ourselves honestly and see what we can do step by step to be a better person. And that's the crux of it.
Great. Again, we're listening to Judith Dreyer. Again, we have to go to break, but when we come back, we're going to continue where we left off, creating our new story. And again, you're listening to Judith Dreyer, and we encourage you to listen to this episode again on demand, which will be available later today. We'll be right back after the break.
What is balance? It's being true to your purpose and not being distracted by shiny objects. Surrounding yourself with family and loved ones. Nurturing your spirituality. Maintaining a healthy balance of emotional and physical wellness. And being present in the moment. Chris Salem creates awareness about eliminating limited beliefs or unblocking mindset barriers for entrepreneurs, sales professionals, business leaders, and professional athletes to have sustainable success at the next level. The solution evolves out of resolving the root cause to the problem. The issue is that many people and businesses manage the problem but do not address the root cause to it. You now have the opportunity to live your life and operate your business in the solution rather than the effect of your challenges. Schedule a time to chat about your goals and the person you desire to be by going to ChristopherSalem.com. We have group consultation calls, one-on-one, and other programs to assist you. It will be the best thing you do for yourself to see how sustainable success is possible for you in your life and business. Join us at the next level. Visit ChristopherSalem.com. What is balance? It's being true to your purpose and not being distracted by shiny objects, surrounding yourself with family and loved ones, nurturing your spirituality, maintaining healthy balance of emotional and physical wellness, and being present in the moment. Chris Salem creates awareness about unblocking mindset barriers for sales professionals, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and all types of people to have sustainable success at the next level. The solution evolves out of the problem or challenge. The issue is that many people and businesses manage the effect but do not address the root cause. You now have an opportunity to live your life and operate your business in the solution rather than the effect of your challenges. Schedule a time to chat about your goals and the person you desire to be by going to ChristopherSalem.com. We have group consulting calls, one-on-one, and other programs to assist you. It will be the best thing you do for yourself to see how sustainable success is possible for you in your life and business. Join us at the next level. Visit ChristopherSalem.com.
This is the Voice America Influencers Channel. Be inspired.
You are listening to Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. Call into our program today at 1-866-472-5795. Again, that's 1-866-472-5795. Or send an email to Chris at ChristopherSalem.com. Now, back to Sustainable Success.
Well, welcome back. Again, we're here with Judith Dreyer. She's an author, speaker, a master gardener, and an expert in the area of creating our new story. And, you know, we were talking about the circle of life and the 4 directions. So if you are just joining us, we highly encourage you to check out the on-demand version of this episode, which will be available later today here on the Voice America Influencers channel. Again, voiceamerica.com, Influencers channel, Sustainable Success. Again, Judith Dreyer, creating our new story. Also, you'll be able to find the episode at the Facebook page, Sustainable Success 2017. So, Judith, you had shared some key wisdom today about this perspective on how we can make changes and create our new story. You know, you have a book, At the Garden's Gate, and I'd like to talk about how your book really, some key takeaways from the book and how this relates to creating our new story, practical dream work and all that type of stuff.
Oh, that's great. Well, my book has actually got 3 focuses, and the first one is it's a personal story. I created a more natural meadow-like landscape in my backyard, and it was a very typical suburban backyard, maybe 1/4 of an acre, and I actually created habitat, shelter. Didn't realize how many resources I was conserving. I did decrease some mowing. The plants that showed up are drought resistant. They supported wildlife, and they also offered edible and medicinal plants for personal use. So I taught at Westcon in Danbury, Connecticut for over 13 years, and I taught holistic health studies. And my students said to me, well, do you have a book? Have you written any of this down? They wanted to know more. And I thought about it once my contract ended over there, and I thought it was time for me to put some of my learning down to share it. So what I decided to do to make it a little different is I paired it up with a medicine wheel of truth that I learned from my Native American elders. So I start off by highlighting the 4 directions and what does that mean. I also talk about giving thanks for what we take. It's very important in my world that we give thanks for what we do. My one elder used to say all the time, do everything with an attitude of gratitude, and I loved that. So I pair up 12 common sort of meadow, I want to say scruffy weeds that are typically around our yards here in New England and elsewhere, and I paired it up with a teaching on the wheel. Now, I learned from the matriarch of the Seneca Wolf clan, Grandmother Twyla Meach, and I learned about the cycles of truth. And there's 12 places on the wheel, and of course the center is our within. It's, again, where our intuition is. So every place on the wheel has a teaching, and so I paired a plant with that teaching to make it a different level of learning, a different way to study, but I also shared how I used those plants in raising my family, because I really stepped off the medical model when my younger son was about 3.5 for medical reasons, and I started exploring alternative medicine, and I was able to conquer my fear because I was trained in Western medicine that said, don't use this stuff, it's quackery, to discover that nature's always been there for us. Nature has what we need. We manipulate it and we change it in the laboratory, but the actual plants have far more about them than just one ingredient. And I started to learn a lot about their gifts and how they work with us. And I stepped into learning about the energies of the ecosystems and how valuable soil is, etc. So I do offer a very practical chapter in there of 7 easy steps to take a portion of your lawn and put it into a more natural landscape. And Doug Tallamy, who wrote Bringing Nature Home, he's a bug guy. We're losing insects at an alarming rate today. And if we just change something in our yard by taking away some portion of lawn, it doesn't matter if it's 2 feet or 2 acres, if we could change some portion of lawn into a more natural landscape, they will come. They will come back. They will be supported. And I hope that my book is inspiring to folks, on those levels.
That's so important. I love what you talked about, the landscape. You think about, with people when they buy a home, they'll have a certain amount of acres. Maybe they don't have acres. Maybe they have an acre or less than an acre. But everything is fertilized and everything is designed to be manicured perfectly. But we don't leave anything in its natural state. So you talked about the importance of that with the insects, because it is so true. Some people would think, insects, that's probably a good thing. Getting rid of them is a good thing. Well, that's not the case. There are some insects that are actually good for not only our lawns and our plants, but just in general. So talk a little bit about that, why people need to kind of keep an open mind with that and how that can impact them, not only, with the way their home looks, but I'm talking about in their lives.
Well, you have to remember that insects are at the bottom of the food chain. If we lose them, we lose everybody up the food chain, including ourselves. That's how important they are. And the other thing that I've learned, because I'm not a bug person, but what I've learned is that 90% of the bugs are beneficial. There's only a small, very small portion of bugs that are hard to control or more destroying. And, of course, we think of the mosquito and the tick in that category. But the other bugs that we're not familiar with, if they come in my house, I just try to find a way to remove them and bring them back outside. I don't automatically kill them. When I had my backyard meadowland, the children in the neighborhood knew that was a sanctuary, that just because they saw a bee or a spider, they were not allowed to stomp it out. And that was part of the boundaries that I set with our landscape. What happens is so much comes in. I mean, I had nights where I would watch the bats, and the bats are seriously endangered here in Connecticut. The deer would come in, the skunks would come in, the moles and the voles would have a place to hang out. But the butterflies and the dragonflies and the bees that I saw, I didn't know anything about them back then, but I saw such a variety of species. And we forget that natural landscapes, like meadowlands, conserve water. They're drought resistant. They provide habitat. They provide food. And they have a backup system. Not only that, but they also are a part of the underground network that's so vital to ecosystems. We have fungi and bacteria there that are just as important as what's on top of the ground. And when we start adding chemicals, synthetic fertilizers, etc., we actually destroy some of those structures and we denature the soil. So we end up back in the old model that's not sustainable. And what we need to do is take action to create more sustainability. So to tie in what you're saying, Chris, is that if we work on ourselves and understand that we're a part of everything and what we do affects the next 7 generations, I believe we can start creating more holistic models.
I agree. And if you could shed some insight, I mean, these are things that obviously a lot of people will say, well, I get it, but I can't wait for this to happen. But what they're missing is that, well, stop waiting for it to happen. Be the example. You take action. Do it. And then as each person takes action, then we kind of see what other people are doing to do it. Can you talk about where maybe some of this is, you've done this, but where we're starting to see a trend where this is happening, where we're starting to see how we're coming back to our natural landscape, so to speak?
Well, that's an interesting question. I happen to be the host of a podcast series called The Holistic Nature of Us. And I feature people from all over the country who are doing just what you said. There's so many innovative people out there. One garden, one yard, one project, one idea at a time who are creating change. So you have a young man who's started his own seed company, and he's saving seed from old sources, the oldest sources he can find around that come from different countries. So he's created quite a seed bank from Africa and the Caribbean islands and other countries. And he's a young entrepreneur who works with several farms in the Pennsylvania area. So he's doing that. Then you have the Biomimicry Institute that has a challenge. It's an international challenge for adults, high school, and middle school students. What's the problem in climate change that can be solved by looking at something specifically in nature? So, for example, some students came up with the idea of refrigeration without electricity, looking at the termites in Africa paired up with a specific hornet and what this hornet does. So the innovation is out there. It's just we don't always hear about it, and that's how my book has led me to writing a blog and creating a website, and now the podcast where I'm trying to connect the dots that there's not only are we interconnected with nature, but nature has the solutions. And I love what Janine Benyus, she's a co-founder of the Biomimicry Institute, says. We are part of a confident universe surrounded by genius. Nature has developed and managed ecosystems for 3.8 billion years. We are a young species. It's time to remember we are but apprentices to these masters. And I feel we go right back to what we talked about right in the beginning. If we are emotionally at the level of a 15-year-old male, then it's time for us to step up to the plate, to mature into the fact that we don't have all the answers, that we've made some serious mistakes, be accountable for that, and let's create the solutions. And I think the universe will support us 100-fold, 1,000-fold once we make that commitment.
That is so powerful, and I think it's so true. Again, we highly encourage everybody listening or that will be listening on demand. This is such an interesting perspective and how it really ties into creating our new story that Judith shared with us. Again, get your copy of At the Garden's Gate. Again, Judith, I would like to, we have about a minute and a half left, and I would like to leave some time to let people know where they can find you, where they can find the book, and where you're going to be next.
Okay, so my book is At the Garden's Gate, and you can find it on all of the distribution arms out there. It's on Amazon, Nook, Friesen Press, iTunes, Kobo, Goodreads, and my website. My website is judithdreyer.com, and that's DREYER.com. And I have everything listed there. My podcasts are there. I have a YouTube channel. I have a blog. I have where I'm featured. I also have my class list. I'm going to be doing some dream classes coming up in April and May, and all of that is on my website. People just have to contact me through that. And my email is atthegarden'sgate@gmail.com.
Great. Well, Judith, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day to join us and share your words of wisdom. This is a very interesting perspective on life and creating our new story as humans overall and individuals. And again, we thank you guests each and every week for joining us every Thursday. And again, we want to enlighten you with new information that can really help you the sustainable way to really make a difference in your personal life in terms of wellness, relationships, and then also your business. And again, we always like to introduce new concepts and ideas that can really get you to be open-minded and think differently. Again, always the sustainable way here at Sustainable Success. We hope you enjoy the rest of your week the prosperous way, and we will see you next Thursday. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Sustainable Success. Be sure to join Chris Salem and his guests every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and 12 noon Eastern Time on the Voice America Influencers Channel. Have an incredible week.